What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, a few days ago, Bob Quinn had a press conference, and in that press conference, he basically talked about why the Detroit Lions haven't been making a whole lot of free agent signings since, free agency frenzy, since all that happened. They really haven't done a whole lot in a while and haven't made any noise, even though Detroit fans are really hoping for a guy like Everson Griffin, a guy like Jadeveon Clowney. Some are even looking at Marcus Golden as a potential free agent the Detroit Lions could pick up. But, basically he said that they're not going to do it because it's just tough to bring in guys for physicals and tryouts and stuff like that, so that's why they're holding off. Plus, they want to save money for the cap space for, when it drops after the 2020 season. So with that in mind, our free agent class is pretty much set in stone. We pretty much know what it's going to look like. There's always the possibility that we could sign somebody else, but at this point, we pretty much know the entirety of our free agent class. We know exactly who's on it. We know exactly, what it looks like at this point. And and today I want to go over and grade the free agents, because I kind of started this channel a little bit after free agency started. I started it right before the draft, so free agency was kind of over at that point, and I didn't really get a chance to grade the players, to grade the pickups, and just I didn't get a chance to do that. So I wanted to go back now that we know that that free agency is pretty much over for the Detroit Lions. Let's go back and grade the free agency period and talk about the best pickups, the worst pickups, and everything in between. Now, before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying the content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds every day to make mine, and I would be very, very appreciative to everybody that chooses to do so. And while you're at it, go down in the description, click on the link to my second channel, and go over to and subscribe to that too. I have daily highlight videos of players and NFL teams on that channel. I've come out with 2 today, and I'm working on a 3rd after this video is made. So go over there and subscribe and check that out as well. But with that being said, let's get into grading the Detroit Lions 2020 free agent class. Now, in this video, I will not be talking about Jayron Harmon, as he was a trade. He wasn't really a free agent signing. You could put him in with the free agent class, but he wasn't really a free agent, so I'm not going to put him in there. But I do think it was a very solid pickup for us, in case you were curious. Now, looking at the first player, we have Halapoulivaati Vaitai, or better known as Big V, the right tackle that we signed away from the Philadelphia Eagles to come in and replace Rick Wagner. I gave this pickup a C+. Now, the reason I say that is because Big V he's not experienced. He's been in the league for a while, but he's never been a full-time starter. Last year in the 2019 season, he played in 476 snaps for the Philadelphia Eagles, committed 4 penalties, gave up 2 sacks, and got a 72.8 overall Pro Football Focus grade. Now, that is a higher grade than Rick Wagner received. He was graded higher in the run and the pass game than Rick Wagner. However, just his lack of experience, his lack of playing a lot has me questioning why we gave him such a big contract, because we signed him to a 5-year, $50 million contract, and that could come back and bite us in the butt if he does not work out. If he does not play up to that standard, everybody's going to look at this as one of the worst free agent signings of this free agent class, and many people already are looking at it as one of the worst free agent pickups. And I don't necessarily mind the player, I just think that we signed him to a lot more than he deserved right now, and that's why it is a C+, and it cannot go any higher. Moving on to Jamie Collins. I gave this an A. It's a straight up A. It has to be. Now, if you just look at what he does, he's one of the best free agent pickups we have. Now, Jamie Collins last year had 81 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 10 quarterback hits, 7 quarterback sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 3 interceptions, 7 passes defended, and 1 touchdown. This guy had so many turnovers, had so many game-changing plays during the season that no matter what we signed him to, it had to be an A. Unless it was ridiculously bad, but it wasn't. It wasn't a horrible contract. Maybe a little high, maybe $10 million or maybe $30 million over 3 years for a guy that's already 30 years old is a little long for a contract, but he's not slowing down. He's making plays. He's still an athletic monster that he has been throughout his entire career. This guy just forces turnovers. He causes big plays and positive plays to happen for the defense all the time. Every single game it happens, and he will be used the same here as he was in New England. I know people say he hasn't succeeded outside New England. That is a fair point, but he's going to be used exactly the same here. He's going to make plays. He's going to be a monster for this Detroit Lions defense, and if we even get half of the Jamie Collins that we saw last year in New England, it has to be an A+, or it has to be an A. Moving on to Desmond Trufant, the big cornerback signing that we got in free agency. I'll give it a B+. Now, I like the signing of Desmond Trufant, but I don't love it. Now, Desmond Trufant last year had 18 total tackles, 4 interceptions, and 7 passes defended while playing in 9 games. In those 9 games, he gave up a 65.8% completion percentage, 436 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Now, I like the turnovers, right? I love a guy that can get his turnovers. 4 interceptions in 9 games is fantastic. But the only thing that concerns me is the touchdowns. 4 touchdowns given up in 9 games is quite a lot. And if you were to extend that the rest of the season, that's quite a few touchdowns given up by a number 1 cornerback. And, the Detroit Lions cannot afford to have a bad passing defense and cannot afford to give up a lot of passing touchdowns in the air. And that is my only pause with him. Now, I still think he's a great player. I still think he is a good number 1 cornerback. And we definitely needed it to replace Darius Slay. But the touchdowns concern me, which is why I can't give it an A. But I do like the signing, and I give it a B+. Now, moving on to Chase Daniels. Now, this is a player a lot of Detroit Lions fans did not like the signing of, and I am one of those guys. I don't mind the player. I think he's a good player. I think he's a competent quarterback. I think that he could, come in and win us football games if we really need him to, but he's never been a full-time starter, which is fine. If he's a backup quarterback now, he's going to be a backup quarterback the rest of his career most likely. But we gave him $13 million. $13 million to come to Detroit to be a backup quarterback. So I gave this a D. And just because of the money. I don't mind the player. I don't think he's even that bad of a backup quarterback. But one, I don't think David Blau was the problem last year when he was playing quarterback. I think the running game, or the lack of a running game, and the lack of a real defense was the problem last year. I don't think it was necessarily David Blau's fault we lost all those games. And we just paid this guy way too much money to come in and be the backup quarterback. Cam Newton got $1 million to go be the starting quarterback in New England. And you're telling me we just paid Chase Daniels $13 million to come here and be the backup? We just paid him too much money, and that's why it is a low grade. It is the lowest graded free agency. I think this was our worst pickup, more because of the amount we signed him to, more so than his actual play on the field. Moving on to Nick Williams, the free agent defensive tackle. I gave it a B. Now, I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of Nick Williams. They just don't think he's going to fit here. It's not the defensive tackle we need. But he had a very solid season last year. He had 42 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 9 quarterback hits, and 6 sacks, which would have been third on the team, or the 6 sacks would have been third on the team if he was on the Detroit Lions last year. And we don't really have a lot of pass rush success, or we did not last year. Now, he had a breakout season last year in 2019. Hasn't really done anything before that. I get that, but he is on a cheap contract. We are not paying him a lot of money to be here, and if he can even get half of that, even if he can get 3 sacks for the Detroit Lions this year, I still think that's a good contract. I still think that's good production for what we're paying him. So I think a B is a very solid grade here, and I think this was a very solid and underrated pickup for the Detroit Lions. Moving on to Danny Shelton, I also gave this an A. Now, Danny Shelton is going to be our starting defensive tackle, and we got him for $8 million, or we got him for $4 million a year. He's going to be our starting defensive tackle, and we are paying him, almost nothing. I mean, it's a very good contract. It's a very cheap contract to bring in a guy that had 61 tackles last year, 2 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. We're paying him $4 million a year to come in and be the starting defensive tackle. That's a great contract, and I still think he's a good defensive tackle, and he is going to be a key piece of this defensive line. So just because of the contract being so cheap and the talent being so good, it has to be an A, because it was a great free agent signing. Moving on to Darryl Roberts, I gave it a C. Now, I don't think Darryl Roberts is a bad player necessarily. He kind of struggled last year in the Jets defense as a starting cornerback, but he's not going to be a starting cornerback here. He's probably going to be the 5th cornerback at the best this year. And, when you can bring in a starting caliber cornerback, or a guy that started an NFL season, he started pretty much every game for the Jets last year in their secondary, he's going to come in and be your 5th corner. Like, that's a very good pickup. But the fact that he's not going to play and we didn't sign him to a whole lot, it was kind of a cheap depth signing. I'll just give it a C. For me, a C is just like, okay, it's a fine signing. I'm not really leaning one way or another on it being good or bad. I just think it's an okay signing. So I gave Darryl Roberts a C. Moving over to Jayron Kearse, the safety from Minnesota, I gave this an A-. Now, could not give this an A because I don't think he'll be a starter. I don't think he's going to play every single snap. And in order to get an A from me, you have to be like a great signing and you have to be a starter for us. And Jayron Kearse just isn't going to be that. He's not going to start over Duron Harmon. He's not going to start over Tracy Walker. But I think he will be a rotational guy. I think he will get snaps and I think he will have production in Detroit. Last year with the Minnesota Vikings, he had 28 total tackles, 6 passes defended, and 1 interception. And this guy can do everything. Like, I'm very high on Jayron Kearse. I think he's going to be a great player in Detroit. I mean, this guy can cover, he can blitz, he can hit hard. I mean, he's big, he's long, he's fast. Like, he can do anything very, very well. And I think Patricia's going to use him in a Swiss Army knife kind of role where he's going to put him in slots someplace. He's going to put him as the deep safety. He's going to put him as the box safety. He might even have him blitzing off the edges sometimes. And he could play sub linebacker if we really need him to because he's got the size and the strength. So I think this is a good signing, but I just think because he's not going to be a full-time starter. I couldn't quite give it an A, so I give it an A-. Looking at Geronimo Allison, the wide receiver we signed away from the Green Bay Packers, I give it a B. I think that he's a good depth wide receiver. I don't think he's going to be I don't think he's going to contribute a ton with Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones and Marvin Hall and Danny Amendola and, all these guys. I just don't know how much production he's going to get. But I think for a cheap contract that we signed him to, a 1-year, like $1 million deal or something, like it was really cheap. I think for him to come in and be a 4th or 5th wide receiver on a cheap deal that still is going to have production and still can make plays, I think that's a very good contract. And the fact that we stole him away from a division rival makes it that much better. So I gave it a B. But as I said, I can't put him higher because he's not going to be a starter. He probably won't even get as much playing time as Jayron Kearse. So it has to be a B. I still think it's a solid signing. I just don't think it's anything to necessarily be overexcited about. And then we move on to cornerback Tony McRae. Now this is a guy we brought in late in the free agent process. This is a guy that is familiar with our current and our new special teams coordinator. He worked with them in Cincinnati, so they're both very familiar. He's a very good gunner on special teams. He's going to probably start on special teams, and we got him very cheap. We got him for another 1-year, $1 million deal, and he's very familiar with the system that our special teams coordinator is going to bring in. And I think that he's going to be a huge impact on the special teams, but as it is special teams, I only gave it a B, as he's going to be a starter, but he's going to be a gunner. He's not going to be a starting cornerback or anything, but I think he will have an impact on special teams. Then we move on to Jeremy Davis, the wide receiver from the Chargers. I gave it a C. Again, I think it's a fine signing. I don't think it's necessarily bad or good. We didn't pay him a lot of money. He probably won't make the team as a special teams guy or a wide receiver. I don't even think he'll make the team. So I think it's an okay signing. I think it's fine, but nothing crazy. And then Reggie Ragland, I gave a C+. Again, I think it's an okay signing. I think he will have a role. I think he will, compete for a spot. I think he will be good competition, but I don't know how much playing time he's going to get just because we have guys like Jamie Collins and Jelani Tavai and Jared Davis. They're all fighting and scrapping for spots, and I don't know how good Reggie Ragland is going to be, and I don't know how much he's going to play for the Detroit Lions. But again, cheap contract, good depth. I think it's a C+ signing. And then the last free agent is Elijah Lee. It's another C. I don't know if he'll make the team. I think he's an okay player. I don't think he's going to be anything special. We didn't pay him a lot of money, so it's just Elijah Lee. He's not going to be doing a whole lot. So that was my grade for the free agency, or for all of our free agents. If I had to give it an overall grade, I'd probably give it about a B+. I really liked a lot of the bigger signings. I liked a lot of the Patriots. I think Jamie Collins and Danny Shelton are going to be fantastic in this defense. I think Jayron Kearse was a good signing. I think Desmond Trufant was a solid signing. I really didn't like Chase Daniels. A lot of our depth linebackers were meh. But, I think we had a very solid free agency overall. I think we got a couple good starters. I think we got a couple good role players. And overall, I think I would give it a B+. Let me know what you guys would give it down in the comments below. Did I overrate or underrate any of these signings? Or, what would you change about these grades? Would you grade somebody higher, or would you grade a certain player lower? Let me know that down in the comments down below. But with that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, I will obviously make a video letting everybody know. But until then, that is all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see all of you tomorrow. Bye, guys.